Welcome to the Ask Faleskini podcast with a guest. I'm proud to present Kirsten Grant from Chicago. Kirsten is an innovative obesity expert and health psychologist. Kirsten, please tell us more about yourself. What is your story?
Well, thank you, first of all, for having me on the show. I'm extremely grateful to be of service to your audience. My name's Dr. Kirsten Grant. I specialize in obesity, and I'm a health psychologist as well as an author and a speaker. My story is I started a long time ago, many years ago, over 20 years ago, in obesity. And it started really with the loss of my mother. I lost her to obesity, stress eating, emotional eating, and food addiction. And the moment that was such a pivotal, transformative moment for me was when she passed away a few years ago. She was so heavy at that time that the funeral director shared with us that they weren't sure they were going to be able to bury her in a normal size casket. And if that wasn't enough, they almost dropped her twice when they went to bury her. And at that time, you think that would have been the light bulb moment for me, but that really wasn't it. It was that moment when, and I'm sure your listeners have experienced something like this when they've lost a loved one. It was that moment when you walk into their home and you realize that they're not going to greet you at the door anymore. And we're trying to address her affairs. And I went upstairs to her bedroom and I opened three dresser drawers that were filled, positively filled with diet books, magazines, newspaper clippings, dating all the way back to the 1970s, almost when I was born. Please don't calculate my age on this one, okay? And that's when I began to have the light bulb moment and realize obesity, mental wellness, health, psychology, those are our driving forces to us getting to the goals that we want. She was a genius. She was a member of Mensa Society. This is certified genius. But yet, despite all of her intelligence, she still was unable to crack that obesity code. So that's what was the driving factor behind me pursuing my doctorate degree in health psychology, a second doctorate degree in clinical holistic nutrition, numerous certifications and trainings, postdoc, in order to help people have an integrative solution to obesity that also encompass mindset and psychology and mental health and wellness.
Impressive story. I would like to ask you for our audience, they're all business people and entrepreneurs. Um, is being an entrepreneur and being in stressful job related to obesity? And if it is, how do you see the relationship?
I see a correlation based on the research studies. A lot of people that I speak to, they enter entrepreneurship with a very good notion and idea. We have a light bulb moment in our lives. We want to help people. I'm an entrepreneur myself. I completely understand. But having a business and starting a business is a lot like having a baby. People are unaware of this. When you have a baby, that baby's unable to feed itself, it's unable to lift its head. Your new business is unable to feed itself. So you have to learn how to feed that business. You have to learn how to train it to take those steps. Eventually, it moves into toddler stage. It walks around and breaks things. you have to learn to have the mindset and the psychology to weather those changes with that business. And when we do that as entrepreneurs, as we go along this journey, of course, sleep suffers, weight gain comes upon us, and we're looking around saying, how did this happen? It's not intentional. It's just one of those things that happen.
So if I understand correctly, uh, if you gain weight is a lot due to the stress. And you mentioned before stress eating and emotional eating.
Mhm.
Would you say that stress eating is or emotional eating is an emotional unbalanced, and that we because we dedicate so much time to business, we somehow want to comfort ourselves with the food.
For the clients that I've worked with that have this as a challenge along their journey, you can replace stress eating, emotional eating with whatever coping mechanism it is that you use. Some clients of mine use stress eating as their coping mechanism to offset the stress, especially for problems that they haven't found a way to solve yet. No one needs a Captain Obvious moment. We all know that we should eat the celery or the salad as opposed to the whole key lime pie. For me to share that with you is not a light bulb moment for anyone in your audience. The key is for us to identify what our values and our beliefs are, understand what our patterned behavioral reaction is to that, understand what our blind spots are to that, and then begin to unravel that learned behavior and reprogram our mind so that our behavior is different. That's the key. Once my clients unravel that and unlock that, then they no longer give in to the urge to binge eat or stress eat, and then the weight just falls off naturally.
Okay. How important is meal planning for that? Because we often, as a busy people, we often don't have time to prepare a meal for ourselves or to go to the restaurant that serves a healthy meal. How important is to plan all the meals in 1 week's time for the future week in order to have less stress about the food and avoid stress eating because you know what you're going to eat for each and every day.
You know what? I used to be on the meal planning bandwagon. I used to be the cheerleader of meal planning. I could not understand, to save my life, why someone would not meal plan, because it does remove a lot of unknown variables, such as introducing excess salt, excess fat, excess sugar into the diet that was unanticipated. However, after working with so many people that positively despise meal planning, I had to create an alternative solution. Number one, if you are the type of person that when we say meal planning, it sounds like nails on chalkboard, this is for you. Find the 3 meals that you like and find ways to create healthier alternatives to them in the form of having certain ingredients at home that you can quickly whip up. Alternative number 2 is finding the restaurant or finding pre-prepared foods at your local grocery store that have this already. These are the 2 solutions that I've crafted for my clients that absolutely despise meal planning. I took a client of mine, for example, on a grocery store shopping trip. We found pre-seasoned shrimp, since she liked shrimp. We found pre-seasoned shrimp, pre-seasoned chicken, already cooked and prepared. She could easily just dump that on a bagged salad, for example, and that gives you your vegetables, that gives you your protein, and then for her palate, for fiber, she liked black beans. So we dump that on the salad as well. It takes less than 5 minutes. You're done. For the day she didn't want something cold, I said just heat up and saute the salad. If you're using spinach, saute the spinach leaves quickly. Now it's warm. So we're removing the barriers to meal planning and changing the way that needs to look, but you still accomplish your goals.
Amazing principle. I think our listeners will all benefit of that. I would like to have your take on 3 things that I'm a huge fan of. One is fasting and intermittent fasting. What's your take on that?
You know, I think it's one of those things that, based on your body type and your mindset, fasting and intermittent fasting can be sustainable. I didn't say it doesn't work. Of course, it's going to work. But the mantra behind my approach with my clients is sustainability. If you're white knuckling this thing all the way through, and then as soon as your fast is over, you eat everything in sight to compensate for fasting, you just you just remove the benefits of it. Fasting is something that we have to approach with mindset wise. Am I psychologically prepared for this? If my default approach is stress eating and I encounter a ripple of stress, I'm not going to make it through that fast.
Okay, yeah, that's a great insight. What do you think when we are on a strict diet? What do you think about the cheat days?
By the concept of cheat, psychologically, you already wired your brain for failure.
Okay. Um,
If I say I'm cheating, if this is my cheat day, then that means all the other stuff that I've been doing, these items are off limits. It's like that when you're in high school and your parents told you to stay away from that one kid, didn't you want to hang out with that kid?
probably.
Yeah.
Uh,
So
what's your take on a carnivore diet?
I've heard from the research studies, I've heard that the carnivore diet is beneficial. The same thing for fasting, it's beneficial. But what I urge my clients to do and the people that I talk to and have consultations with is to find what works for you. For some people, the carnivore diet does not work with their biochemical individuality at all. So you can try to make it work. If you find that you experience increased energy, your lab test results from your medical doctor come back fine, and you experience no ill effects, then maybe carnivore diet is for you. But if you find that carnivore diet or any diet that you're trying to strictly regiment yourself into following is not physically beneficial to you, it doesn't help with your metabolic health, and psychologically you're suffering, we go back into the fact that it's no longer sustainable. We have to find for our own individual biome and our own individual psychology what is sustainable for us. This is the key to success. No matter if the clinical study says it works, if it doesn't work for you, then we need to find something else.
Okay, that is a really great approach. Now I would go into statistics a bit. When we talk about obesity, for example, I check my percentage of the fat, and when I go above 15%, I'm already declaring myself fat, and I start either fasting or I start eating less so that I have less calories that I need every day. What would be your cut-off point for obesity in body fat percentage for men and for women? I do believe that they differ a lot.
There is a chart that I could pull up, or any one of us could pull up for Google. You have your athletes, for example, with the body fat percentage for women. If my memory serves me correctly, it's in the teen percentage, like 15, under 20%. I believe it's a little bit under 20%. I know that for women, when body fat percentage falls below 12%, if memory serves me correctly, that becomes a dangerous zone.
Yep.
I forgot what the statistic is for men. Please do forgive me, but I know that it's easily searchable to find out what works for men. I know that men can survive at a lower body fat percentage than women just because of because of men's physiology compared to women. So actually, I prefer with my clients, when we talk about health and measuring health, I understand it's much easier in a doctor's office to refer to the body mass index, commonly known as BMI. However, it doesn't take into account, according to research studies, different body types. For example, if someone has more muscle than fat, their BMI will be higher, but it doesn't mean that they're obese or overweight. It's because muscle weighs more than fat. So for my clients, when they find that they're uncomfortable or displeased with BMI, I recommend two other things as a way to measure their health. Waist to hip ratio for both men and women. It's easy to find a calculator once you have your measurements. You measure your waistline, the circumference of it. You measure your hips, the circumference of that. You will Google waist to hip ratio, and put those numbers in, and then you'll determine what it says. That's number one, a good indicator of health. The second thing is, like what you mentioned, body fat percentage. Those two things I find help give a wee bit more of an accurate idea of how healthy, so to speak, you are, as opposed to relying solely on BMI alone.
Okay, that is a great insight. So everyone needs to understand or know their body mass index, waist to hip ratio, and body fat. That would be perfect. And I do believe that when you start any dieting, it's the visit to the doctor and checking the blood and all this stuff is a must.
Yes.
I would also like to ask you one more or address one more topic before we conclude, and that is how important are smart devices. Almost all of us have smart watches, and now we are all really careful that we do 10,000 steps a day, that we do at least 30 minutes of cardio, that we do like four times a week weightlifting and similar. How important is that really an enhancement, or is just a waste of time and too much info on our hands?
It depends on your personality type. I have certain clients that kind of data is very helpful to them because they've never measured it before. They had no baseline even to start at or with. And in this case, that data is extremely helpful to help move the needle in the directions in key areas. Like, for example, I recall there are certain smart technology watches that monitor your sleep.
Mhm.
Sleep is extremely important to wellness, mental health, as well as health. Some of my clients were completely unaware that they weren't getting enough sleep, uninterrupted sleep, because those trips to the bathroom, those count as breaks in your sleep and your REM cycle. So having this technology is great to assist you with that. However, I do have certain clients, they cannot utilize that technology because they're very conscientious and numbers oriented, and it is very triggering. For those clients, I usually recommend let's hold off on the technology for now because there is a potential trigger for that personality type. So it depends upon what personality type you are. If you find data to be helpful and not triggering, then this is a great idea to pursue. However, if this technology is triggering for you, it's not a good idea at this moment and pocket of time.
Thank you very much for all these insights. Is there any trick or the trait or any trade secrets that you could share with our listeners before we conclude?
Knowing what your triggers are, understanding what your value system and belief system is, and that unlocks learning more about what your triggers are. And this helps you stay in a grounded state the more that you know what those items are, because you'll be able to regulate your own internal system and psychology as opposed to being influenced by external variables, which will trigger you if you're unaware of your value, belief systems, and triggers to binge eat, stress eat, and therefore contribute to obesity and being overweight. Once you learn these things, you become almost bulletproof to the stressors, and then your wellness naturally is a result.
Ooh, that is a great insight. Where can our listeners reach you?
I can be reached in two ways. Number one, I'm all over social media. So if you Google Dr. Kirsten Grant, you'll find me quite easily. I also have a website, edibleaddiction.com, or you can text our company number for obesity tips at 312-601-8510.
Thank you very much. I will include that in the description. And thank you, Kirsten, for being my guest tonight.
Thank you for having me.